They are one of the biggest names in the makeup industry, and now they're opening up in the islands. They partner with makeup stars like James Charles, Jaclyn Hill, Jeffree Star, and so many more.
We opened Canada's first ever Morphe store. A day in the life of a Morphe makeup artist. So when I walked into my store this morning, it was completely empty, absolutely nothing except for foundations. We have not received answers as to whether we will still have jobs or our store will remain open. Justice for Morphe employees.
For years now, Morphe has been known as one of the top online beauty brands, especially when it came to influencer marketing. They were able to build a multi-billion-dollar business from cheap, made-in-China cosmetics and brushes.
So you guys already know that my favorite foundation brush is the M439. Yes, it's the M439.
But they didn't get to where they are today without the help of some of the biggest influencers in the game. They found so much success from online sales that they were able to open up stores globally. They were quickly competing with stores like MAC and Sephora. But unlike those stores, Morphe was short-lived. Today, we're going to be talking about the rise and fall of Morphe. From Morphe working with some of the biggest influencers in the industry to now closing every single store across the world. It's a mess, so let's get into it. Whether you hate to admit it or not, at some point, most of us have owned something from Morphe. They were a great brand for people who were just starting out in makeup and didn't have a ton of money to blow at stores like MAC or Sephora. But Morphe was cheap for a good reason. They weren't always the best quality. A lot of products had a really strong chemical smell.
Testing out the new Morphe concealer. Smells like paint.
And some of their business practices were pretty questionable, especially when it came to their relationship with influencers.
Another great thing about Morphe is that I have a code with them. It is a commission code, so I do make a small commission if you guys use my code.
Morphe got into the beauty business at the perfect time. Influencers were starting to take over platforms like YouTube and Instagram, and brands were noticing how profitable influencer marketing was becoming. Morphe built relationships with these influencers early on and gave them all discount codes to share with their fans.
So they did agree to give you guys 15% off, and this is only gonna last for 5 days because they do not do 15% off. My normal discount code Jack Attack is normally for 10%, and that is an affiliation code.
Palette is available right now for $39. You can save money if you use code Nikki.
I'm just saying you get 10% off if you use my code Manny, MUA in all caps, 10% off the entire site.
Plus 15% off with the code LauraLee15.
As always, if you want to use code James, it gets you 10% off this entire holiday season.
It seemed like a really great deal for everyone involved. Influencers were making a commission from their codes, the customers were getting a nice 10% discount, and Morphe was making a killing. But it was only a great deal on the surface. Remember what I said earlier about Morphe not always being the best quality? If you were a first-time customer, you probably didn't even know that because these influencers were making the product seem like liquid gold. Since Morphe was giving out these really nice commission codes to influencers, the influencers were pushing Morphe as their full-time jobs. Beauty influencers like Jaclyn Hill made a fortune from promoting Morphe. All they had to do was talk about how amazing yet cheap Morphe was, and oh, even better, I have a discount code with Morphe that you can use for 10% off.
You are welcome to use discount codes on all of this. I would say you can use any code, but I would definitely use code Jack Attack since it is Morphe's most popular one.
Morphe had the success they had because of the push from these influencers. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every single Morphe product ever made was complete trash. There's clearly people out there who like them enough to keep them in business for this long, but they aren't worth what they were charging, and they aren't as good as these influencers were claiming.
This is the thing about Morphe brushes. They are all so cost efficient, amazing quality, like freaking like MAC and Sigma status like quality, and they're so cheap. Like they're so good. Their eye brushes range from like $3 to like $7. Like they're just amazing.
The price is cheap because it's made extremely cheaply with cheap materials and ingredients.
You look at this and you think, wow, that looks nice. That will really blend out the crease really beautiful. But hopefully you can see here, like if you're blending, do you see how it just kind of like Like, it's not dense at all, so it doesn't blend anything. It just like basically like turns into a mop.
They inflate their prices to make it seem like you're getting a really good deal with the discount codes and the sales, when in reality, you could probably get the same quality of brush for $1 from some no-name brand. The discount codes weren't the only area that Morphe was making money from. Morphe hit the jackpot when they discovered collabs.
I have a Morphe collab.
With discount codes doing so good for them, why not just team up with an influencer, slap their name on a palette, and watch the money roll in? That's exactly what they did with influencers like Jaclyn Hill, James Charles, and even Jeffree Star.
Jeffree Star Artistry Palette!
The Jaclyn Hill palette sold out within hours, and so did every single restock to follow. The palette was created by Jaclyn and even had her own special formula that was loved for years by makeup artists and fans, and it definitely went down in history as one of Morphe's biggest successes. They later tried the same thing with the next big influencer, James Charles. James and Morphe created an artistry palette and a brush collection, and just like the Jaclyn Hill palette, Morphe couldn't keep it in stock. They tried once again with Jeffree Star. He released a whole collection including a setting spray, a palette, a beauty blender, and a brush set. They later went on to collab with Bretman Rock on a highlighter palette, and they decided to also collab with Nikita Dragun. Morphe was able to use these influencers to expand their reach to numbers they would have never made alone. Jaclyn, James, and Jeffree brought their audiences, and people would buy up stock just to support these people. But all this success did not come without some major drama, especially when it came to Jaclyn Hill. People started to catch on to the whole Morphe campaign that these influencers were pushing, and it made fans lose trust in their favorite beauty influencer. People were so sick of hearing about Morphe this, Morphe that in every single video, especially knowing that their excitement over the product was probably more likely excitement over how much money that they would be making with their commission codes that month. In short, it became old quickly and people were over it. Morphe also created a lot of drama for Jaclyn Hill. There was the drama with the Vault collection, where influencers who received it in PR noticed the quality wasn't as good as the original Jaclyn Hill palette. It was extremely patchy and hard to blend, and people just hated it. Jaclyn and Morphe made the call to pull the palette, with Jaclyn praising the brand, saying they were going to be losing millions of dollars, but still chose to make things right. Only problem is, people didn't believe it. How could a brand pull a product, lose millions, and then reformulate and produce new palettes so quickly? A lot of people felt like there was something shady going on with it, and it made people not want to support Morphe or Jaclyn. Then there was the drama with her Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 palette.
It does not need a filter. It does not need anything to wow. It's so freaking beautiful.
The Volume 2 palette was supposed to be the exact same quality and formula as the original Jaclyn Hill palette, but it actually wasn't. Jaclyn created the formula for her palette, and it was exclusively hers. She promoted the Volume 2 palette by saying it was the same original formula, just new colors, and fans were so excited.
This is the same loved formula as the Jaclyn Hill original palette, and people ask me about that all the time because they're like, wait, what do you mean like it's a different formula? Because Morphe has their standard formulas and I created my own formula. There's actually been other people who've collaborated with Morphe who've asked if they can just use my formula, and they're like, sorry, that's Jaclyn's only. Like, I signed papers, it's my formula that I worked very hard on a couple of years back to develop. So
that's until people noticed it actually wasn't the same formula. It was no longer vegan, and Jaclyn claimed she was completely left in the dark about the formula change. Once again, another shady business practice coming from Morphe. Around 2018, Morphe made a huge change to their business model. After having so much success with selling their products online, they decided to open physical stores worldwide. In only a short amount of time, they managed to open stores all across the US. They opened multiple stores in Canada, including the West Edmonton Mall and in Mississauga's Square One shopping center. They opened stores in the UK and Australia. They were opening everywhere. Now, when I first heard about them opening all these stores so quickly, my first thought was they were taking on way too much, too soon, and too quickly. I personally felt like they should have been opening stores in maybe a few major cities across the US, waited and saw how those did, maybe opened one in Toronto, and slowly expand to other major cities over the course of a few years. Instead, these Morphe stores were popping up everywhere and fast. Now, only a few short years later, the stores are already closing for good. A few months ago, people started to notice a few Morphe stores were closing quietly. There was no announcement, just a huge sale, and that was it. Someone made a post on Reddit which said, "When did they close the Morphe store at Square One? I went to Square One this past Friday after not having been there for a couple of weeks, and noticed that the Morphe store was gone. It was papered up and everything, and is no longer listed in Square One's store directory." Back in October, an employee from the Square One location posted a TikTok about the store closing, and they were responding to people in the comments, claiming it was due to lease agreement issues, but now I'm not too sure that was the real reason. Towards the end of December, right around Christmas time too, Morphe decided to start closing some US locations as well. People were posting about all these amazing sales that Morphe was having, and employees actually came out and said, yeah, that's because we were blindsided by them closing our stores, and they pretty much gave us no notice.
Hey guys, I know we all miss seeing a stocked Morphe store. If you do come by, please be kind. I know you want to know the tea, but we know just as much as you, which is nothing. And you're basically reminding us that we might not have a job, especially around this time. But yeah, it's a lot for us, and we wish we knew what's gonna happen because, you know, we're truly like ride or die employees. We work so hard, and you would think they would think of us just a little bit, just because not only is it such a big company, but it's also really hard to get in. And it's really crazy to see that they're still, you know, super active and sending PR, but not doing what they can for us. But yeah, I miss this.
What it's like working for Morphe right now.
Like, what the fuck is going on?
A day in the life of a Morphe makeup artist. So when I walked into my store this morning, it was completely empty, absolutely nothing except for foundations. We have not received answers as to whether we will still have jobs or our store will remain open. Justice for Morphe employees.
Then, once the new year hit, they decided to close even more stores, only giving some employees as little as 1 day's notice.
I'm the store manager of that specific Morphe, but Morphe has been closing retail stores for like at least a year now. Hush hush, real quiet. They're telling everyone that it's due to like lease stuff. Anyway, so like I said, I'm the store manager of one of those Morphes. Tomorrow's actually my last day. We're packing up the store. They told us on the 22nd of December that our last day of business is the 26th of December, which is today. And then tomorrow we're just packing up the store and we don't have a job anymore.
Back with an update. Just got off of the global conference call, hearing about what's going on with Morphe. So our store is closing as of tomorrow. We've had 1 day of notice, so there's that. It's still just very cruel and such a bummer to see, you know, what everyone is having to do and having to go through at this moment. So it is what it is, but Morphe is going to be going forward online only. I don't know about other countries, but US stores are no longer, as to my knowledge.
And people in the comments of these videos who've recently been into Morphe stores are sharing that the employees that they talk to have absolutely no idea what's happening. I asked a Morphe employee if they were closing, and she said she doesn't know. It's very unfair to you guys. I'm sorry you have to go through this. They did that to us too. Watched the store go from 50% to 70% to 80%, then 95% off. We closed the day after Christmas with like a 3-day warning. And another person said, I also asked. Another said they're not even telling them anything. So if this doesn't show you just how shady Morphe is as a business, then I don't know what will. The fact that they can make their employees mark down stock and have them wondering what's going on, having to have customers ask them if they're closing down, and feeling embarrassed because they don't even know what to say because they don't know themselves. Morphe knew that they had plans on closing, and they should have been telling these employees months in advance. They were probably just afraid that these hardworking people would go off and get hired at a good store like Sephora or Ulta and leave them before officially closing. Giving someone a day's notice should be illegal. I don't care if they get a week of severance or what. In today's world, that's not enough to hold someone over. A manager from Morphe actually came out the other day and claimed Morphe was closing all of their US stores.
Yeah, it gets worse actually. Because all of the stores that Morphe has open are closing effective today. And I told them today that their last day is today. This is extremely heartbreaking because hundreds of people are now jobless effective today.
But then Morphe gave a statement to Insider, and they claimed that select stores will be staying open. Insider wrote, a representative for Forma Brands, the company that owns Morphe, confirmed that some US locations are closing, but did not share the number of stores. The statement cited the broader beauty landscape throughout the last year as a reason for the closures. They told Insider, decisions that impact our people are incredibly difficult, and we extend our deepest gratitude to the dedicated Morphe store team members at the closing stores for delivering outstanding beauty experiences to countless customers over the years. And if you go to the Morphe store map, you can already see a huge number of stores have been removed from the map. Right now, it only lists about 27 stores, with 26 of those being in the US and 1 being in Edmonton. But I'm not too sure if that's an updated list because Tyson's Corner is still listed as up and running, but someone on TikTok actually confirmed that the store was in fact empty. As far as any statement from Morphe, so far they're giving us nothing. They haven't released anything on any of their social media accounts, they're still posting like normal, and they're ignoring hundreds of comments from people calling them out, like, any word on the closing stores? I'm confused about it all, thanks. Not you ignoring the fact that hundreds of your employees are now out of work with no answers. What's happening to your employees? Hashtag justice for Morphe employees. So what's the deal with the stores? And did you guys file bankruptcy? Let your employees know what's going on. The audacity to post and not give employees answers. Dang, all those people without jobs now. We need answers, and don't say it's because your lease is up. Since there's been no real statement about why they're closing their doors, all we can really do is guess, and people have their theories. Some people think it's because of the current lawsuits brought against them. From my knowledge, there's currently 2 lawsuits going on with Morphe. One is over allegedly dangerous eye products. The lawsuit claims that Morphe has ingredients in their makeup that aren't eye safe, and they didn't do a good enough job of warning people, and it resulted in injuries. Another lawsuit recently brought against them is by Shelby Wild, a founder of a hair care line called Playa. Shelby is claiming Morphe and an equity firm called General Atlantic failed to adequately support her brand after buying it back in 2020. Forma promised that her brand would make $50 million in annual revenue within 5 years' time, but those projections weren't looking accurate. An article that was released behind a paywall and then posted over on Reddit says the following. Wild received a $200,000 signing bonus as part of the deal, but the prospect of a bigger payout quickly began to look remote. Playa sales in 2021 totaled $1.9 million, up from $400,000 in 2020. But less than half of what Forma had projected. By the start of 2022, Forma's efforts were focused on reviving Morphe, by far its biggest brand, which had seen sales sink from a reported $500 million in 2019 to $295 million in 2021. Forma also had ambitious plans for Ariana Grande's makeup line Rem Beauty, which hit the market in November of last year. In internal documents, Forma Brands said it would hold new product development on Playa and Bad Habit, a beauty brand it launched in November of 2020. It projected sales of $2 million for Playa for 2022, barely more than the previous year, according to the internal documents. Sephora dropped Playa earlier this year, the retailer previously confirmed. So there you go. Forma's main focus was on reviving Morphe, which was clearly struggling and dropping massively in sales for the past 3 years. Which brings me to the next reason people think Morphe is closing. Bankruptcy. Near the end of last year, there were a bunch of articles going around claiming Forma Brands, the parent company of Morphe, was considering Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Although no statements about the bankruptcy were made, the article claimed to have a source which blamed their decline on the downfall of beauty gurus. They wrote, sources blame the pandemic, which caused a 2-year slide in color cosmetic sales, supply chain issues, as well as controversy surrounding celebrity brands from Jeffree Star and James Charles. And personally, I think the downfall of a lot of the biggest beauty gurus is probably the main reason Morphe is suffering. Like I said in the beginning of this video, Morphe recognizing the power that these influencers had and getting in with them early on was the reason they were put on the map. Yes, they were doing good on their own before the gurus came along, but not as good as they were doing from, say, 2016 to 2019. These influencers brought their audience of millions of people to Morphe. They shilled their products like they were the best thing they ever saw. They gave us codes, making us think we were getting some amazing discount. Influencers brought people to Morphe who otherwise would have never given Morphe a second look. Ironically, what made Morphe also destroyed them. Let's look at some of their biggest moneymakers. Jaclyn Hill pushed Morphe so much that people stopped trusting her. Now Morphe is closing stores and Jaclyn's makeup is all over discount stores like Winners and TJ Maxx. Then we have James Charles. Lucky for Morphe, James came along at the perfect time. People were starting to lose trust in Jaclyn, and James was the next big influencer. His palette did amazing for them. And honestly, there weren't too many complaints about the palette other than staining. Unfortunately for Morphe, James found himself in the middle of actual crimes. I was gonna say scandal, but it goes way beyond that. And they were forced to drop him. They took nearly an entire year to finally wind down the sale of his palette. He was their main moneymaker for years, and you just know that had to hurt them financially. Then we have Jeffree Star. Back in 2020, when the whole situation with Tati was going on and Shane was being canceled, Morphe decided to cut ties with him. Jeffree said he was shocked by their decision, and he still makes remarks about it to this day. Jeffree played a huge part in Morphe's story as well. He sold his own products at Morphe, he opened stores for them, he and Shane did their conspiracy collection meet and greet there. I mean, their relationship was so prominent that people actually thought Jeffree was some secret investor in their brand. After back-to-back scandals with these influencers, Morphe decided to take a new approach. They stopped working with your typical beauty influencers, and they turned to the new generation of influencers.
Hi, I'm Charlie.
And I'm Dixie.
They hired Charlie and Dixie to be the face of their new line, Morphe 2, a light coverage, more young teen type of makeup. They noticed the shift of people turning to more skincare and wearing more minimal makeup during the pandemic. And that was their chance to pull in a new demographic. But that didn't really seem to work out for them. Charlie and Dixie definitely weren't the next Jaclyn Hill or James Charles for Morphe. Their audience didn't seem that interested, and I honestly haven't heard much about Morphe 2. To wrap things up, I think it's a little bit of everything. The pandemic changed everything for pretty much everyone. People weren't wearing makeup as much, they weren't going to school or out with friends, we were working from home, and more people turned to skincare. Cosmetic sales have dropped massively, and not just for Morphe, but for most, if not all brands. Since people lost some interest in makeup, beauty influencers also haven't been as popular. People got sick of feeling like we need to buy, constantly being overwhelmed with release after release, and honestly, a lot of people can't afford to keep up with that lifestyle anymore. I think people are just burnt out, especially financially and emotionally. People are now being selective with where they place their support and where they spend their money. And Morphe and their long history of shady business isn't making the cut. Morphe officially came out today and confirmed all US stores are now closed. They wrote, "We have made the difficult decision to close all Morphe stores in the US. We are forever grateful to our store teams for their passion, talent, and dedication over the years." They also claimed stores outside of the US would be staying open, writing, "Customers can continue to shop Morphe online and at select retailers. Morphe stores outside of the US will remain open." But we all know that's not exactly true. The Square One Morphe store in Mississauga, Canada was closed down, and the employees there were left with no answers. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about everything down below. Are you guys shocked by Morphe closing down stores, or did you know it was coming? Also, let me know what you think the main reason for Morphe's downfall has been. Is it influencers becoming less popular? Is it Morphe dropping their main influencers? Or do you think it's financial strain from the pandemic? Let me know, and I'll see you next time.